everyone. In this video, I would like to go into how to learn and practice a piece. This video will be about mastering the piece technically, which obviously comes first, and the next video in this series will be on musical expression. I've chosen Küchler Concertino in G major op.11 for this video because this series is basically a course on violin playing where each video builds up on the last one, and if you've done the previous exercises, scales and etudes, this piece should be well within your range. For those of you who are more advanced, I can still recommend working at this piece a little bit because it brings a lot of benefits to work on a piece which is too easy. My teacher Ruggiero Ricci always said to practice exercises, scales and etudes which are too difficult, but to play pieces which are too easy. The point of this is that if you're playing pieces which are too easy, you can concentrate on the quality of your playing, you can pay attention to details, and you can work at musical expression. Also, the practicing methods I show in this video, you can of course apply to any other piece you're playing. The two basic elements of music are rhythm and pitch, and I would suggest to take a look at the rhythm first because your muscles need to know when to move. Basically what I do with a piece is I work at it phrase by phrase. In this piece, the first phrase is bar 9 through 16, and at first I divide even that into two so that I don't have so much to remember. So what I do is I take the first part and I concentrate only on the rhythm. That will lead me automatically to bow division. In this case, we're dealing with half notes and quarter notes. The half notes get about the whole bow and the quarter notes get about half the bow, perhaps a little less. So what I do is I play through my first part, which is the first half of the phrase, concentrating only on the correct rhythm and the correct bow division. That would be this. That's the first part that I work on. So you disregard intonation and sound. Depending on the difficulty of the piece, that can sound pretty crappy at first. But it's really important to get the rhythm correct because, like I said, your muscles need to know when to move and you need to know in what rhythmical structure you are working. So what I do is I play that several times until I notice an improvement. It is very important not to get discouraged with this way of practicing it because, like I said, depending on how difficult the piece is for you, just concentrating on a correct rhythm and correct bow division usually really does mean that the intonation doesn't work and also that it doesn't sound very good. That does not mean that you have to play it up to speed. It just means that the rhythm has to be correct. You can do it slowly, but concentrate on the correct rhythm and the correct bow division. You can't practice everything at once. It's not possible. And I've had very, very good experience with concentrating on the rhythm first. The next thing I do, when I've played that part of the phrase a few times, concentrating on rhythm and bow division, and notice some kind of an improvement, what I do is I only concentrate on intonation and sound, and I disregard the rhythm and the bow division completely, so that I can concentrate only on intonation and sound. That basically means that you stay on the note until it's in tune and until it sounds good, and using multiple bows if necessary. Main thing is that it's in tune and that it sounds good. And very important, use open strings to control your intonation. Practice it in double stops using open strings and practice all string crossings in double stops. So that would be something like this. Stay on it until you're satisfied. with the best and biggest, fullest possible sound that you can. That's important to be able to hear the intonation properly so that you have plenty of overtones, and you're practicing sound as well as intonation. Make sure that you stay on each note until it's completely in tune. Don't worry about the rhythm and don't worry about the bow division. I usually go through that part working only at intonation and sound a few times, also until I notice some kind of an improvement. Don't stay on things too long because you need to move on, but try to repeat it until you notice some kind of an improvement. Then what I do is I move on to the next phrase. I don't put it together yet. That takes more time. So when I've basically done the first part of the phrase, working at rhythm and bow division, and then working at it for intonation and sound, then I move on to the next phrase, or the next part of the phrase, which is the second half of the phrase. And again, I start concentrating only on rhythm and bow division. That's this. And I practice that a couple of times, making sure the rhythm is correct and the bow division is correct. And then I practice it only for sound and intonation, disregarding the rhythm and the bow division completely. Again, with open strings and string crossings and double stops. That will be. Several times until I notice an improvement there. And that way I basically work my way through the whole piece. I take the next part of the phrase and work at it in both methods, and the next and the next. Depending on how much practicing time I have, I might only get through a few phrases on one day. In that case, the next day I just continue where I left off the day before. So it can take several days to get through a whole movement of a piece that way. It doesn't really matter how long it takes, just work your way through it. When I've worked my way through the whole piece or the whole movement of a piece this way, what I do is I start from the beginning again, working at it in the same way, in the same blocks of phrases. And I do that until rhythm, bow division, intonation, and sound start coming together. You will notice that when you're practicing it for correct rhythm and the intonation is better and the sound is better. So when that starts coming together, what I do is I practice in larger blocks. I don't divide the phrases in two anymore, but I practice the same way in a whole phrase. So basically then I just put the blocks together and again work at it concentrating on rhythm and bow division, and then working at it concentrating on intonation and sound. And when I've worked my way through the piece that way, then I start putting even bigger chunks together until I end up playing the whole movement through, concentrating on rhythm and bow division, and then playing the whole movement through, concentrating on intonation and sound. Now I would like to go into a couple of specifics of this piece for those of you who are working on it. The eighth notes after the first phrase are probably the most difficult part of the whole piece. And a good way of practicing them, besides the methods which I just showed, is to practice them in dotted rhythms. That would be this. Basically, they're supposed to sound like this. Now, a good way of practicing them is to practice them in dotted rhythms. That would be. Do that a couple of times until you notice an improvement, and then practice the opposite. Do that a couple of times until you notice an improvement, and then play it slowly with the correct rhythm. And then you do the same thing with the next part. Again, practice that until you notice an improvement, and then do the opposite. And work your way through this eighth note section that way. That will definitely help. In bar 54, in order to get to a comfortable place for the détaché eighth note starting in bar 55, what I suggest you do is you play the half note at the beginning of the bar with the whole bow, and the following two quarter notes, both on one bow, on an up bow, with half the bow, so that you end up in the middle and can play the détaché in the upper half. That would be this. So you play the half note with the whole bow, and then the two quarter notes with only half the bow. That brings you to the middle, and then you can play the détaché comfortably in the upper half. I'll show you again without talking. That makes the eighth notes a lot more comfortable. In bars 77 through 85, bow division is important. Basically, you're ending on a long note, that's the A. Leave the bow on the string and stay in the upper half. Again, leave the bow on the string in the rests. Stay where you are and continue with an up bow. That way you get to where you need to be when the next phrase starts. I'll show you again. You have the long A. Don't lift your bow in the rest because it's hard to get it back down without bouncing in the upper half, and also you might be late. So stay on the string. Stay on the string. Stay on the string, continue with an up bow, so that you then have the whole bow. That's very important in this part. In bar 99 and 100, basically what you do is you play the half notes in bar 99 with the whole bow, and the first quarter note in bar 100 with half the bow. That will take you to the middle, and then you can do the following détaché eighth notes in the upper half comfortably again. That will be this. That's the most comfortable bow division. So you have whole bow, half a bow, stop the bow, and then start the eighth note. That's the most comfortable way to do this. Okay, I hope you find this helpful, and the next video of this series I'm going to be going into musical expression in this piece and how you practice it, how you work at musical expression in a piece in general. So I hope you'll join me.